Hello, sisters. All right, so this marks the 20 times 2 minus 1 plus 1 plus 2. 23rd. No, wait. Whatever. This is like the 45th video on this book. The final episode. Okay. So there's 20 essays. For all but one essay, we did a discussion and a reading. I also did an introduction. And this is the last video. So it's a lot of videos in one book. Should almost send them royalties or something. Not that I'm making money off of these. Like, I think my monthly income last month was like $14 or something. So I'm making bank. All right. So I thought, okay, my goal today is to briefly summarize what I think the essay was about and like my rating of the essay. I was thinking, I think I will like develop this skill the more I do it, but I think for today, I'm going to just mark the essays. Well, let's discuss it, I guess. I probably should have planned this better. I thought I had a very good idea of what I was doing, and now I sat down and I seem to not have an idea. I want to decide the rating system before I get going. I'm very peculiar about this. Like, on book rating websites, the average rating that I give books, I think, is like a 2 point. Anung, long time no see. On Goodreads, the average rating I give books is like 2.5 out of 5 or something. I'm super hard. Okay. So let's say 5 stars. This is like how I'll start at the top because this is how I always do my rating system. 5 stars means I would like to reread this essay. It was so good that it's not even like maybe I'll reread it someday. I'll think of it. And it's like, no, I'm going to sit down and reread this essay someday. That's 5 stars. And obviously, if I would willing to reread the essay because I think it's so good, I'll probably recommend it to somebody. I can think of like 4 essays in the book that I would probably give 5 stars to. 4 stars, I would recommend it to someone, but I don't think I would really sit down and reread it. 3 stars is like, like it was okay. I didn't hate it, but it was like okay. I probably won't give many things 3 stars unless I feel bad. Like I don't want to give them 2 stars even though they deserve 2 stars. Just wrote like 3 stars. Okay. 2 stars. Usually my 1 star is like I couldn't get to the end of this book, or if I did, it was extremely painful. I'm going to say 1 star is actually harmful propaganda. Because there was a bit of that in this book. And 2 stars will just be like annoying. Okay. Well, now I wish I had I was thinking of using OBS to get used to it today. And then I was like, but I don't have anything I need to put like around. I wish I should have like, next time I do a book of essays, I'll do this. I'll put like the rating system on the side and I'll like list each book as we go along so you can see like a list of all the books and the ratings, but whatever. Okay. I can do it in the description later. Yeah, exactly. 1 star, aka negative 100 stars. Okay. So I'm just going to read over the star system before we get going. 5 stars, I plan to reread this essay. 4 stars, I would recommend this essay. 3 stars, this essay was like okay, nothing insanely good, insanely bad, it was just like okay. 2 stars, it was an annoying essay, but it wasn't like horrific. 1 star, I didn't really want to finish this essay. I found it to be problematic or to be like basically propaganda and harmful and disgusting. All right. Hey, Blood Moon, it's been a while. Hello, Lavender Rose, Dragon Kittigan, Toss Stones, Anung, Myron, Maple, all the sisters. Okay, let's get going. So I would like to make this video under 1 hour. We've already lost like an entire 1 essay review time if I was going to do 3 minutes per essay. I mean, let's be realistic. This is not going to be 1 hour, but whatever. Okay. So section 1, identity. This section of the book made me really like try and look towards the future because this section of the book was quite painful But I was like, you know what? There's good essays in this book. I need to just like power through. So the first essay. Maybe I should have like reread these before we started the video, but whatever. So here, this essay, okay, I mean, whatever. I'm recording, so I guess I'm going on the record. But if what I'm saying is bullshit, and you're like, this is not what the essay was about, this is not what you thought when you read it, you can go back to the original discussion of the essay. But to me, this essay mostly seems to be about how we can't have too fine of a definition, too precise of a definition of lesbian, because this will exclude women or hurt their feelings or some crap. And she's quite like on one hand it seems like she's being nuanced because as we know, and especially before the last like 3 decades or whatever, most almost like a vast majority of lesbians had heterosexual experience or married a man or something. So she leans into that being like, you know, we can't just say you're not a lesbian if you've ever had any heterosexual experience, which is like fair enough. But she takes it like much further, which is like, are you sexually attracted to men, but you're like a feminist who centers women in your life? Like you're a lesbian. I don't think that's true. Um she talks a little cool. She does some nuanced views on on lesbophobia specifically, like historic lesbophobia specifically, like from right. This is the woman who taught at a women's college, right? And I actually did find those quite enlightening, and I liked those. Oh yeah, and then this essay also is kind of asking like, why do we see higher instances of lesbians at women's colleges, and like society's reaction to that, and the women going to school, their reaction to that, and the parents' reaction to that, and blah blah blah. Which I actually I liked her takes on that. And then she also just kind of has like a discussion about language. Like, so you know, how many women will call themselves lesbians, but if you like survey them on their recent sexual experience, they'll be like, yeah, within the last year I've had a heterosexual experience. So she's basically like she's trying to make the point in this essay to some extent that language might be quite specific, but the way people use it as an identity label often is not that specific. And so we need to like acknowledge that or make room for that or what something like this. I don't know. It wasn't a horrible essay. There was definitely this. There's a few essays that I got absolutely nothing out of the essay. This was not one of those essays. I at least with this essay, I felt very connected to like the time period of the book. Um, so I would not recommend this essay to anyone. I would give this a 2 out of 5 stars. It's annoying. Most of this essay is postmodern crap. Some of it is not postmodern crap. It wasn't like super painful to get through, but I didn't enjoy most of it. 2 out of 5 stars. Again, if you want to go back, like it's been like a month since I read this essay, maybe longer. I can't remember actually. It if you are like, no, Benji, when you read it, you loved it. Go back and watch that discussion video. I don't fucking remember. Um, Anung says it can always go on the know your enemies shelf. Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't think it was disgusting, but it wasn't amazing. Okay, next essay. So, Issues of Identity in the Psychology of Latina Lesbians by Olivia Espin. Um, this one was pretty interesting. This one she talks about identity development. This was the first time in my life that I have really thought through the concept of identity completely separate from identity politics. She means identity in like the original way of like, oh, when I perceive myself and I perceive this person, I perceive that we have these things in common, and like this is my sense of self, regardless of who I'm around. Like this kind of sense of identity. I really loved this essay. It had multiple graphs or charts. It had lists. It was very, very concrete, and yet discussed a quite abstract concept. Um, she discusses and not only that, she compared and contrasts two different identity formation like theories. Just like this essay was like so well done. I felt like you could definitely tell that the writer was an academic, but the way that she wrote was so accessible. I really appreciated this essay. And she talks about kind of like the basis for intersectionality, like the bisecting of, you know, when you're a lesbian and when you're with the lesbians, they see that you're a lesbian and they validate that and you feel like accepted. When you're with the Latinos, like because that's what the essay's about, then the Latinos will accept you and you'll feel validated and seen in that way, but it like bifurcates your sense of self because you can only be like this type of self and this type of self in different groups. Um just the way she explains it is so great. She has this study, which, I mean, it's extremely preliminary. Isn't it only like 20 women or something? Or it's a quite small amount of women. But she basically did like a preliminary study about like the culture of Latina lesbians in the US. Um and how they view their self and they view being a Latina and being a lesbian and the connection and the differences and stuff like that. And like this just so well done. Look, they give us the questionnaire so you have a very clear idea of what's going on. This is like the one of the most concrete essays in the whole book. um yeah, I would rate this probably, I would say a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I would recommend this essay to someone, not like anyone randomly, like just for fun, but I think if you were discussing like race specifically among lesbians, this is a great place to start to even like get your mind in that space of thinking about it. Because I don't know, I found this essay quite decent. No, but Anung, her point was that like especially in Latino culture, if you go into like your like Latino community where it's like your family is there, your church is there, you're not like being an out and proud lesbian in their face in the 70s. So like if you want to be seen and like respected and experience your Latino culture, it like necessitates hiding your lesbianism. And like inversely, the women that she studied, like who the with like the 20 or so women who took part in the study, they said like when they were in lesbian spaces, like they basically couldn't behave in the normal way they would according to their culture. They had to like tone it down because it was all white women and the white women found that obnoxious or something. um I do think it's like patriarchal, but just I don't know, she explains it so clearly that like me as a white person, I was like, oh, I have a very clear idea of what exactly these women's experiences are, and it's not all about like feelings, it's about like real world implications for them, not just feelings. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Okay. You're gonna read the essay title, and you're all gonna be like, "Boo!" Okay. Essay number 3. Sexuality is a continuum. The bisexual identity. Pretty sure. Okay. So the first sentence of the essay, I actually agree with, but the way she has gone about trying to convince us of this is like backwards. Understanding bisexuality is essential to lesbian psychology. I don't necessarily disagree with that, honestly. Like, I think it's like when Marilyn Fry says, she's like, we know the effect of patriarchy based on like the ripples. So to me, it's kind of like you can understand something about the lesbian community by understanding something about the bisexual community because they're like related to each other, right? And I'm like, true, sure. Or like, you know, like parsing out who is a lesbian, who is a bisexual. Maybe like it might be a useful thing to talk about this, but no. What is the author doing? The author is not doing this. The author is like, here, here's how all the lesbians are mean to the bis. Um, I don't know. This was like the first essay that I was like, I remember when I read this, like while I was reading it on camera, thinking, oh shit, have I picked up a book that is like early queer theory propaganda and I just didn't realize it? Like, is the whole book like this? That is literally what I thought while I was reading this essay. It was so bad. Like, I'm pretty sure this is the first essay in the book where she like capitulates like, oh yeah, sometimes lesbians are sexually attracted to men, but like we're still lesbians. And I was like, to me, oh yeah, she has a whole subsection of the essay about how sexuality is a choice, about how like true sexual liberation means like everyone should basically aspire to be a bisexual. Um like she doesn't say it outright, but that's like the sense if you're reading between the lines. Um oh yeah, and also wasn't this like the 40-page essay? Yeah. And then she wraps it up by being like therapists need to know about like the differences between bisexual women's experience and the lesbian woman's experience. Okay, good, sure, whatever. And then she is like the therapist also needs to assume and take the position that if their client's sexuality changes or their label changes or whatever, like it's all good and it's whatever, and basically assume nothing. And it's like, okay, I get that. Right? Like the therapist's job is not to be like, this is who I think you are and that's who you have to be. Okay, true. But like if you literally have like a lesbian client who is like, it's very obvious that their life circumstances have radically shifted their like self-esteem and whatever, and then now they're like contemplating sleeping with men. Like this should not be a situation like based on the way that she phrases it. I basically was like, I could very clearly see a therapist reading this essay, taking it to heart, and having a lesbian client who comes into the office who's experiencing like extreme internalized lesbophobia and as a result wants to self-harm by sleeping with men, and because the therapist took this essay to heart, the therapist would be like, you know what, you go girl, I support you. Like that was the conclusion of the essay in my mind, and that was like super fucking upsetting. This essay number 3 definitely gets 1 star. Harmful propaganda. It lies unequal, like what she said, this lies in the know thine enemy category of essays. um Yeah, the author of this essay very clearly is a bisexual, which I was like, why the fuck is she in this book? Like, I think you could argue that a couple bisexual women writing for this book might be okay, depending on what they're covering and the tone and attitude and perspective with which you're covering it. But I think you have to be like very, very particular for it to like for me to even be like, oh, that makes kind of sense. This did not fit that. All right. Yeah, the author did describe herself as bisexual, basically. Like at one point, she literally is like, because she keeps talking about like the bisexual community and like how the lesbians are treating the bisexuals, but then at one point, she uses us. She's like, I'm pretty sure it's in this essay. She's like, a lot of women experience attraction to men but choose not to act on it, and she's like, you shouldn't judge us for that. Something like that, where she's been using. I don't remember. I don't know how English works, but she's been applying it to about other people, and then at one article, she applies it to herself, and it's like, oh, so all this is about you. No, and no, I totally feel that. That's why, like, yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Okay. I mean, that's why I haven't thrown away any of my queer theory books, because I'm like, someday I'll have like the intellectual capacity and the emotional width to like sit down and reread that garbage with like a new perspective. You know what I mean? All right. Okay. Number 4, aging lesbians. I don't have much to say about this because it was fucking amazing. This is definitely like to me one of like the top 4 or 5 essays in the whole book. It was so fucking good. It was basically about like it was about like lesbians aging. So it was about from your perspective as a lesbian, you know, when your partner dies, you're not legally married because this is from the 80s. You're not legally married. What does that mean for you financially? What does that mean for you in living situation? As lesbians age, like who is caring for them? Who like what is the relationship between older lesbians and younger lesbians? That's what's covered in this essay. Freaking amazing. Gold. One of the best essays in the whole book. Essay number 4, Aging Lesbians, definitely gets 5 out of 5 stars. I will reread this essay, like maybe not on YouTube, but I will reread this essay and I will recommend this essay to other women. Oh no, I'm not gonna reread Judith Butler, bro. I don't want to hurt my brain. I meant other more obvious shit like Julia Sereno or whatever. Um, yeah. Ugh, or Foucault. No, no, no. I don't mean like philosophy. If you can even call Butler philosophy. I mean more like contemporary stuff. Okay. Dude, I have Julia Sereno signed books. I went to like his book readings as a teenager. I was like, "Oh, I'm so lucky that I live in a city that has like a queer bookshop where authors come to like do book readings and signings and shit." Well, as if they ever had any real lesbians there in the last like 20 years. All right. So, yes, essay 4, 5 stars. Essay 5. This is another one of my favorite essays in the book. Oh, Marquis de Sade. Yeah, I actually know someone who's read that and like recommended it to me, and I was like, "Mm." Oh yeah, the like Whipping Girl by Julia Sereno is so misogynistic. Like Julia Sereno's and basically every Tim's entire perspective is I want to be treated like a woman, but not actually like a woman. I want to be treated better than women. And because the women don't treat me better than they get treated, they basically hate me and want me to die. And so any woman who won't get on her knees and suck my dick wants me to die. That's like the tone of all of Julia Sereno's books. It's really disgusting. Okay. No, Anung, like the first time I read Pornography by Dworkin, I remember being like physically feeling in my body like unwell because I was like, this is so upsetting to me. And I had to like take breaks and like hang out with women and like calm down and shit. I totally know what you mean. Okay, let's get back to the thing though. Okay, number 5. Invisibility, Fantasy, and Intimacy. Princess Charming is Not a Prince by Lee Zevi with Cali A. Cavallaro. So this essay is a bit about gender roles and gender nonconformity and this essay I think also is the only one in the book that talks about like the childhood experience of being a gender nonconforming lesbian and basically how you get treated and how you internalize that. Um and this essay to me is essential because what it talks about is how you internalize society's reaction to your gender nonconformity and how that can be twisted into gender dysphoria. I mean, that's not the words that they use, but if you actually read the essay, that's basically what like talking about. And um it's just great. And the fantasy versus what is did he intimacy? Yeah. Like the fantasy aspect of it to me was like really, really interesting. She brings up some interesting stuff, like young lesbians have really, really rich fantasy lives because the things that they want, they can't experience, or because they're going through like they're very alienated in their life, their day to day. So in their mind, they're not like a lot of things that make a lot of sense to me that I've like heard anecdotally. Like this essay kind of put a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together for me. Um, I really, really love this essay. This essay gets a solid 5 out of 5. I would definitely recommend this essay. Okay, we're probably making pretty good time. That's essay 5. Oh yeah, no, I assume based on who Anung is that she read the she read Desaad as like an analysis, not like this is amazing. Um okay. Well no, Anung. There's literally courses. I know at least at NYU and at University of Toronto, there's at least one course that's like the study of porn. And it's not like the history of porn and how did it come to be. It's like, no, this is my specific fetish, the professor. Let's go on Pornhub together and watch these videos together. Like it's extremely fucking disturbing. Like it's not even really like academic. Like it is and it isn't, but it's like it's not. It's fucking disgusting. Um did you do your graduate degree in women's studies and no? Okay. I'm trying not to get distracted. If I'm ignoring you, my bad. Or whatever. Okay. Um Essay 6. Lesbian Sexuality, Issues in Developing Theory by Margaret Nichols. Okay, so right. So based on library you're a librarian? That's so cool. I always thought being a librarian would be really cool. Then I realized you have to like do a master's degree, and after you have your master's degree, it's super fucking competitive and everybody wants to be a librarian. Like there's more people with library degrees than there are library jobs. So then I was like, never mind. But I've always wanted to work in a library. Like it seems like such an awesome place to work. Okay, whatever. So this essay, based on the title, I was like, oh, this is going to be about like the evolution of like a lesbian and knowing and living her sexuality or something. That's not what this is about. This essay, I mean, I don't even know what the fuck it's about, honestly. Oh my god, yes. This is the one where she's like, okay. My god. This essay was so painful. This is another essay that I was like, if I wasn't reading it live on YouTube, I would stop reading it. Like maybe, but like at least temporary. Like it was so bad. This essay was like, are you a lesbian? Let me tell you some stuff. Lesbians are not having enough sex. We know that because when we compare it to any sexual activity involving men, lesbians are doing less sex than the men. Like, oh, I wonder why that could be. So, obviously, this is bad because any instance of sex is better than no sex, according to the author. Quality of sex, quality of intimacy, irrelevant. The number of times you're having sex, that's all that matters, according to the author. So, how can we solve this problem, according to the author? What we should do, us lesbians, we need to emulate gay men because they're having the most sex. And how do we do this? Like, I remember this essay so clearly because I was like, are you for real right now? I think this is one of the essays where I was very, very focused in the discussion because I was like ripping it apart the whole time because I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This woman literally was like, okay, there's two things that I remember specifically from the essay. One thing she brings up is gay men are less like PC about sex. And because they're less PC about it, they're more into like orgies and S&M and crap. So lesbians should be like that. Cause how wouldn't that fix all of our problems as a community? Then she's like, oh yeah, okay. So her other thing is how for lesbians, sex is like emotional and how basically the way she describes it in modern terms would be described as like gray sexual or demisexual or something. Because she's like lesbians need to have like an emotional bond and that leads them to like states of arousal or whatever, and that leads them to having a lot of sex. So without the emotional bond they don't want to have the sex, or with the emotional bond changes or dies or whatever, they don't want to have the sex. Okay, so that's how women are. No, what's wrong with that? That's how the women are. Okay. She's like, no, 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 the women need to fix themselves. They need to learn how to separate sex from emotions. And once they've done that, then they can have sex outside their relationships and inside their relationships. And thus, they will be having more sex. And thus, the problem has been solved of not enough sex. I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. Like, it's the whole thing is like disgusting. Disgusting. Um, And at multiple points, she is like, like lesbians, if they're having like politically correct sex, there's no orgasms. You're both lying in the same position. No one is moving. No one is being the aggressor. You both have the same haircut. I was like, are you for real right now? Like the way she described like the like politically correct like lesbian feminist sex, I was like, all right. Oh yeah, she specifically mentions the like yeah, peeing on each other or something. Like she Oh yeah, and isn't this the essay where she literally is like, "Yo, like lesbians should stop being so uptight about S&M because it's great." And like a paragraph later, she's like, "Yeah, I had a client who got really into S&M and got like addicted to it and committed suicide." What the fuck, lady? Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's this author because she has two essays in this book, I think. Um who says that there's radical feminists who think that the concept of orgasms is patriarchal. So like any sex where the goal is orgasms is like a patriarchal sex or something. And I was like, okay. Okay, whatever. Next essay. Yeah, so this one out of 5 stars. Harmful, stupid propaganda. I did not like it. It was painful and bad. No, 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 Anung, it was not about the best. There was no information about quality whatsoever. The only information we had was instances. Gay men have the most number of sex. That is the only information we had, and according to the author, that is what we should aspire to. Having as much sex as possible is all that matters. I was like, what the fuck? I literally said in the video, like, I'd rather have sex like twice a year if it's good sex than like every day if it's bad sex. Like, anyway, okay, whatever. All right. Okay. So now, oh yeah, by the way, that essay was in the relationship section, I think. Yeah. Now we're in the second relationship essay. Essay number 7. Barriers to intimacy, conflicts over power, dependency, and nurturing in lesbian relationships. This one was very good, I thought. It talks a lot about like, well, power dynamics, um, dependency and nurturing. So the power dynamic stuff I think is really great. The way she talked about it was quite nuanced. And again, she brings up this idea that lesbians want to be uh egalitarian in their relationships, and that some lesbians are so focused on this or so anxious about this that it has a negative effect on their relationship or their self-esteem or whatever the fuck. That was really interesting. Then she mentions dependency. So how she is quite radical feminist compared to many of the other authors in her analysis of this, that women are socialized to be like supporters, to be nurturers, and because of this, women are basically socialized that people are going to depend on you and you need to be there to support them and self-sacrificing and all this. And she goes into, how does this affect your relationships? How does this affect your sense of self? How does this affect what you truly desire or what you feel you need to do or whatever? Good. Um was a nurturing independency. Oh yeah, and the dependency too. She also mentions like a couple of the other authors in the book, I'm pretty sure. This idea of fusion. Um that like the way I understand it is basically that lesbians become so deeply connected so quickly that they can often become basically codependent. And like what does this mean? Why does this happen? This kind of thing. Pretty interesting. Anung, do you mean bottoming or subbing? Because aren't those like not necessarily mutually exclusive? Oh yeah, anyway, so this essay I thought was like very, very nuanced. And this essay I really liked because it discussed not only the abstract psychological concepts, but also gave uh also gave very concrete explanations, very concrete examples. I had these specific clients, Kate and Deborah, whatever their names are. This was the state of their relationship, and I diagnosed it as an issue of dependency, and this is what happened. I really liked that. Yeah. Oh, do they? Well, I've been out of that kink shit since I was like 18. I was like in the kink shit as a teenager until um yeah, basically until I became a rad femme. And then my friends were like, "Is that a good thing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's not great." Yeah. Okay. I think like the subbing, like using the word like submissive instead of like bottoming when it comes to kink, I think it's really insidious cuz what at least when I was a teenager, like the propaganda that I consumed was basically that like the power dynamic in BDSM is what you're looking for. So, regardless of who's doing what to whom, like who is like the penetrator or whatever, it actually is about like um the power dynamic. And this is like really insidious because you're basically telling someone like, "Oh, you don't necessarily need to be like hurt in this way, but you should still like submit to the power dynamic." And it's like at the end of the day, I don't think that's really it's not really like, "Oh, well, as long as you have the power dynamic, anybody can do anything in that power dynamic." Like, no, that's not true. Like that's not really what happens in BDSM. So like it's like a lie. I don't know if I really articulated myself well, but the whole thing is disgusting and upsetting. All right. No, that's the same shit, Anung. The same shit. Like when I was like 15 and being like, I'm a sub or whatever the fuck. Yeah, I was 15. I literally like got like leather bracelets and I was like, I'm a submissive and like I'm into BDSM and whatever. Like, oh my god. Um, and then like obviously like a bunch of like dudes online took advantage of that, obviously. Uh, but yeah, it was like it's like you're the one who has the power because you're the one who agreed to it in the first place. And it's like what you're agreeing to is not having the power to say no. So after the initial agreement, you literally have no fucking power. So anyway, okay, that's not the point of this stream. We're supposed to be talking about the essays. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the essays. Okay. This essay. Okay, essay number 8. Again, it's in relationships. The impact of race and cultural difference. Challenges to intimacy in lesbian relationships by Norman Garcia, Cheryl Kennedy, Sarah F. Pearlman, and Julia Perez. So, um, this is actually this essay is interesting. It has like a one-page introduction, and then the rest of it's written in prose or dialogue or whatever. Yeah, I don't think it's prose. I think dialogue's more accurate. So there's two couples. An Irish American dating a Puerto Rican and a Puerto Rican dating a Jewish woman. And they're all living in the US, I think in Massachusetts. And I don't know. I thought it had some really interesting stuff to say aside from like how many essays in this book have Jews and blacks. This is one of the essays that had that. Okay, whatever. I think the woman who said it is like the black Puerto Rican woman, but still I'm like, why? Oh no, actually was it the Jewish woman? I don't fucking know. But I was just like, why don't say that, but whatever. Um so I thought this essay brought up some really interesting topics and gave us like a very personal introspection into a lot of stuff. However, what I didn't like about this essay was I understand the concept of it being like a transcribed conversation. That was interesting to me. That made it much more human, which made it like this personal introspection stuff, right? But to me, it didn't really feel very structured. And because of that, I didn't really feel like I came away with like, oh, this was like the goal of the essay, or like these were the two big points of the essay. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt kind of like nebulous in a way that none of the other essays felt. But I do like how they tried to like go outside the box and format. That was interesting. So, um, I'm going to rate this as a 3. So it's not bad, it's not good, somewhere in the middle. 3 out of 5 stars. Okay. All right. This essay, one of my favorite essays in the book. Essay number 9. The Effects of Women's Socialization on Lesbian Couples by Sue Vargo. This essay was so good. I think probably one of like the top 3 most radical feminist analyses in the whole book, I would say. Um this one as well. So it describes feminist concepts, it describes psychological concepts, and then brings us like theories from academics to give us like a concrete understanding of things. Brings us, I'm pretty sure there's some like actual examples of like, I knew a lesbian like this, or a case study or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, the author is a couples therapist, so she gives us a couple of like actual examples of lesbians and what their issue was and how it looked one way, but if you understand female socialization because you have a feminist analysis, you can see the actual problem in the relationship and help them actually fix that problem. Um, I This was one of the best essays in the book. Uh, a lot of the times when somebody asks you what is female socialization, I think I can give a pretty convincing definition or explanation. But a lot of the times, I think it's very abstract to women, and I think especially to like lesbians, because I think a lot of the times when feminists are discussing female socialization, they discuss it like almost entirely in the context of the relationship between men and women, right? Like you're walking down the street, you see a guy. How do you physically react? How do you psychologically react that there's a guy next to you now? Like that's good, that's true, whatever. But she talks specifically about the interactions between women, and it's specifically about the interactions between women in a romantic context, which I've never seen an analysis of female socialization specific to lesbian romantic contexts that was so freaking enlightening to me. I really, really, it was very I don't know, it made me think. I liked this essay a lot. 5 stars. I will probably reread. There's like 4 essays in this book that I will reread. That is one of them. Um, yeah. Okay, section 3, family. Essay number 10. Coming out to mom. Theoretical aspects of the mother-daughter process. Yo, guys, are you ready for some Freud? Okay, this is like I think the first essay in the book that's like smacking you in the face with Freud, which you know. Yes, Michelle says I did love that Benji in reference to the last essay, the female socialization and lesbian relationships. Um, Especially where she said some lesbians hold back from instigating sexual contact due to socialization, so both of them end up unsatisfied. Yeah, because it wasn't only about female socialization, it was about how like lesbians try to undo their female or like not behave according to their female socialization and like what the effect of that is. And one of the like insights I got out of that essay was that if you think patriarchy has programmed you to respond in X way, doing negative X, just doing the opposite, might not actually like solve the problem, because doing the opposite might not actually change the outcome. Like you need to be more outcome oriented rather than like just like process oriented. I don't know. It was interesting. Uh okay, so this essay was so strange. I mean, it was interesting. I'm glad that I read it. I've never thought about stuff like this before. Um and like this is probably as much exposure to Freud I'll ever do as I'll ever get. Uh a daughter's choice of lesbianism may be experienced unconsciously by the mother as a sexual intrusion. Like this essay was quite stupid. So this essay was about basically like when you come out to your mother, how does that change the dynamic of relationship with your mother? When you come out, what does this like trigger in you and your mother's memory about your childhood and your connection to each other when you were younger? Then it gets into the whole Oedipal crap. I'm pretty sure this essay is the first one to do that. Intrapsychic considerations, yeah. I mean, a lot of this essay is really strange because a lot of it is based on like feminist principles, right? That like, women train their daughters to be like just as useful as them because the daughter, her purpose when she grows up is to be useful to a husband, right? And so like this a concept, like there's many concepts like that she talks about. But instead of taking it like so she basically like the mom sees herself as a failure because she trained her daughter to be a woman, but her daughter didn't like accomplish womanhood enough. Or like the daughter the mother sees the lesbian partner as a threat because the mother trained her daughter to serve a man, and for and because if the daughter is serving a man, then the mother is always like the number one woman in the daughter's life. But through the romantic connection, now the mother has been usurped and is now like the secondary woman in the daughter's life because the primary is her romantic partner. And so like some of it was like interesting feminist concepts, but like the conclusions she came to were like a bit strange for me. Like I don't know, it was a bit strange. Like, I will say, I think that some of the best part about this essay was basically taking coming out as like a serious thing to be like, why are you coming out? Who are you coming out to? What point in your life are you doing it? What are the expected consequences? Are the gains from coming out worth the risks that you're taking by doing it? Like, this kind of like very consummate perspective on coming out, which is quite unusual these days. I appreciated that. Um, and some of the intra family stuff, like not just mother daughter, but like as a family as a whole. Like one of the things that um, one of the concepts that she purports is so if I'm a lesbian and my sister was like the trouble child and I come out, well, suddenly I become like the problem child because I'm like the bad lesbian. And so even though I have become like the whipping boy of the family or whatever, um, I've actually done a good thing because I have helped the straight child like not be in this negative position. Like I don't know, she brought up a couple of really interesting concepts when it came to like the family dynamic of coming out as a lesbian. So there was good things about this essay, but most of it was pretty stupid. Um this essay is so long. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I would say like the really good stuff about this essay was basically the explorations of like the experiences of women coming out, why did they come out, what were the consequences, how did that affect their family, blah blah blah. That was pretty good. So I was leaning towards rating this a 2 out of 5 to put it in the annoying category. Like not like over the top horrific, but like annoying. But actually I think I'm gonna put it in 3, the like not too bad, not too good category, like kind of okay. Cause even though like most of the essay was stupid and was about this weird Oedipal Freudian crap. The stuff where she talks about coming out and the family dynamics I thought was quite good. So I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Hey Kaz. Okay. 11. Anung says we used to sit by the campfires at Mishfest and share coming out stories. We would laugh with tears in our eyes. Everybody's story was so different. Maple says that sounds beautiful. I agree. Like, yeah. Oh, yo, and Nung, I need to sign into my spinster and message you. I'm coming to Michigan in the summer. So we should like have a coffee or something. Cause like if I'm gonna be in your state, I don't know where you are, but you know, like if I already made it that far, it can't be that much farther to see you. All right. Ahem. Essay 11. Lesbian families, psychological stress, and the family building process. This was really, really, really interesting because it wasn't about like how do I adopt a kid or like how will my community react to me adopting a kid. It was literally like the psychological process of like who do I consider family? Why do I consider them that way? With the way people react to me, do I internalize that or do I reject that? How does that affect me? How does that affect my kids? How does the way that my kids get affected affect the way that I think about myself and my partner? Like, I don't know. It was very interesting. Um, this essay, my main thought about it was kind of superficial. Like it touched on so many topics so briefly. Um, Also, wasn't there like I think something I didn't like about this essay was like that it's about lesbians, but then it kept like no, this is not that essay. I also like there's a couple of essays that I thought gave me like specific insight into the time period, and this is one of them. Like there was a whole section on invisibility and isolation that like the examples she gave, like they seem obvious, but I don't know anyone who's experienced that cuz like it's 2022. And also I like most of the lesbians I know are radical feminists, so I don't think they would like associate with their families if they treated them this way. But like one of the examples she brings up is like what if you want your kids to have a relationship with the grandparents, but the grandparents reject your relationship? So does that mean when you go to the grandparents' house, the kids and the mothers need to all pretend like she's just a friend? Or like the mothers sleep in different bedrooms, right? Or that the kids go to grandma's house and pretend that the other mother doesn't even exist at all. That basically the mother who's with them is a single mother. Um, oh, that's what I found weird about this essay, and I think it's a product of the time period. Not necessarily that I hated it, I just thought it was interesting. She doesn't refer like she refers to the woman who gave birth as the mother, and she refers to the other woman as the co-parent, which I thought was interesting because she keeps saying like lesbian families, lesbian mothers, but then she kept like differentiating. I'm not saying that there's like no difference because obviously whether you gave birth or didn't give birth, there's like a difference in your experience or whatever. But I just thought that was interesting how she kept being like we need to make sure that we validate like that they're both mothers and they're all part of the family, but then she kept like differentiating like that. So that was interesting. I wonder if Dragon and Anung ever met each other at Mitchfest. Wow, that's a long essay. Yeah, okay, so that one I thought was pretty interesting. But I don't know if I would necessarily reread it because it does feel quite outdated. And like I said, kind of superficial. I would rate that a 4 out of 5 stars. I would recommend it to someone uh who was interested in this topic, but I don't know if I would necessarily reread it. I thought it was pretty good though. No, Blood Moon, I get what you're saying, but I think that's kind of an oversimplistic way of thinking about it. Um yeah. All right. 12. Child rearing attitudes of black lesbian mothers. So this essay was like very specific, which I freaking loved. It's also based on a study. This is 26 women. Oh no, 26 lesbians and 26 straight women she compared. She later brings up, and they're all black. She later brings up how it would be interesting to compare like black lesbians to white lesbians, or like different groups other than the two groups she chose. Um, So she comes up with yeah. This one had so many numbers in it, and I was like, I get it that this book is like for psychologists. So like if you have like your master's in psychology, you've taken like a couple of like data literacy type classes or whatever they call it, like references and resources. I don't know what they call that fucking course in like your master's degree. But so they would know how to read these numbers, but I was like, I don't think this book is really like only for them. So it seemed a little bit, I don't know. It was just kind of clunky. Like she still explained things in a way that I, a non-academic, could understand, but it seemed a little bit clunky. Um, I think I'm being a bit of a hypocrite though, because I keep saying that a lot of these essays, well, I haven't said it now, but like in the discussions, I was like, this essay was so abstract and vague. I don't even know what she's talking about. Like, there's a couple of there's a couple of essays, for example, where it's like it's not discussing like visual or even behavioral. It's discussing psychological. It's like these women are more masculine. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Like they just use it offhandedly in one phrase. I'm like, what does it mean? So like, there's so many essays in this book that are really, really vague, or that have like sections that are vague. This essay was like extremely concrete, and I'm complaining about it, and I retract that complaint. Okay. Um. So yeah, she basically had like a hypothesis of 8 characteristics she thought the black lesbian mothers would have. Um, and she did a survey, and she told us what she found, the things that she expected that she would find that she didn't find, the things that she didn't expect that she did find, and what does that mean. And it was very, again, this to me, when I was doing the review of this, I basically was like, this essay is like an extended what do you call that thing? Whatever. You know the thing when they do like a scientific study, there'll be like a little blurb about it, and it's kind of like this is the conclusion of the essay or the study, but it's like quite short and brief, and it's just kind of to give you an idea. This is basically like a long form of that. Um I don't know, I thought it was good. But I felt it was very preliminary and abstract. Thank you, Anung. It's basically an extended abstract. But I did feel it was extremely preliminary. Like a study of 26 women, I'm like, it means something, but what does it really mean? Like that's a very, very small sample size. Um, yeah, I kind of felt like this was like the stepping off point for this type of study rather than like the conclusion of anything. Um, yeah. Okay. Section 4, therapies. Essay 13. Internalized homophobia, identifying and treating the oppressor within. What did I think of this? I can't even remember this essay. No, 1 second. Mama. Okay. Anybody else remember this essay? What did I think of it? I think I had mixed feelings on this. Some of it was like very clear cut and like obvious, like good. I agree with that. Other stuff was like I don't know. What I appreciated about this essay was how it broke down into very concrete, interconnected aspects of what is internalized homophobia instead of just being like, oh, you hate yourself because you're a gay. It's like 10 pages of you feel like you're strange and other people treat you like you're strange. And what does that mean for you? Like strangeness specifically. Or like uh female socialization with sexuality. Like as a child you start to be like groomed. Your purpose is to do this. Well, you've been groomed for that and everybody looks at you and expects you to do that, but that's not what you're doing. So how do you interpret that? How does that affect you? Like this like very specific stuff. Okay, this is the essay though. Right. Like she talks a bit about like id and ego and whatever, which is like fine. But then okay. I can't remember all my thoughts on this essay, but this is the one that quotes Anna Freud and then the next page quotes Foucault. So I'm going to rate this based on my memory and scanning of it. I'm going to rate this a 3. I think there was some really good stuff in here, some really great insightful stuff in here, and then I think there was some asinine bullshit in here. It's so strange, Anung. It's like strangeness has been commodified into one thing. And so it's like strangeness is valued, but you have to be that one thing to be strange. So it's actually like uniformity that's being valued, but it's being viewed and perceived as like rarity that's valued rather than uniformity. Um, no, but the Anna Freud that she quotes is like Freudian Oedipal crap. So much Oedipal crap in this book. All right. I want to try to wrap this up soon. We're more than halfway. We are like 3/4 of the way. Oh my god. This is the same author as before. Yeah, exactly. Anung, we're on the same page. That's what I was talking about. Okay. Uh, Essay 14. Doing sex therapy with lesbians. Bending a heterosexual paradigm to fit a gay lifestyle. By Margaret Nichols. Yeah. So she's the bisexual. I think this actually might be the essay where she's like, you guys should pee on each other to see if it helps spice up your sex life. This essay is very reminiscent of her other bisexuality spectrum essay. But instead of it, it's like extremely similar because instead of it being about how the other essay was about how the instances, the occurrences of lesbian sex are less than the occurrences of gay male sex. Like from least to most sexual activities, like lesbians, hetero couples, and gay men, whatever. The last essay by Margaret Nichols was basically about how we need to aspire to having more instances of sex. This essay is about how lesbian bed death. And but her solution is the same. Her solution is the same. She's like, we need to emulate gay men because they have more sex. And I was like, why? Like it's not this in this essay, it's not so like forthright, but like that's basically what she's saying. Um yeah, no, that's what everyone was saying. And like, oh my god, in the last Margaret Nichols essay, she literally is like, spice up your sex life. Like, you can whip each other, or play with feathers, or use ice cubes, or like bondage. And we were like, are all of those in the same category? Like whipping someone or using a feather in bed? Is that in the same category? And I was like, no, the whole thing was just yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this essay, let's scan through it a bit. Okay, some of the stuff she points out in here I think is quite pragmatic. She has like a list of questions. Uh is it this essay actually? Yeah, she has a list of like things you can do to diagnose relationship problems that seem quite good to me. Um, and like just a general way of looking at like sexual activity within a relationship that seemed quite pragmatic to me. But the fact that she keeps falling back on like, yeah, so if the problem is that one of you has a high sex drive and the other one doesn't, obviously you should just have an open relationship. And I'm like, you like looked at the problem and instead of looking for a solution, you were like, let's break the relationship. How is that making the relationship stronger? Like it's very stupid. Um, but like there's some stuff where she's like, make sure you force them to use very specific language. Like make sure you get them like individually to tell you what they think about their sex life and whatever. And I was like, a lot of that stuff seems good, but I don't think it's like an insight I could only get from this lesbian psychologies book. And it definitely all of her insights, none of them are like female specific or lesbian specific. They're just kind of like relationship therapy specific. Um, so she keeps coming back to this idea that she mentions in her last bisexual continuum essay that basically lesbians feel like sexual arousal or attraction or whatever based on their emotions. So, if a lesbian relationship is not in a good place, there will not going to be a lot of sex and it becomes like a feedback loop and whatever. Fine. She goes back to the same idea, which is you need to just separate from sex from feelings. And I'm like, I don't think that's like the solution. Anyway, Maple, exactly. That was one of my criticisms of this author. The way she talks about sex, Maple says, as if your options are missionary sex in the dark or beating each other with whips and chains. Nothing in between. Yeah, that's the way she acts about it. Kaz, have you or your loved one been diagnosed with vanilla sexathelioma? You may be entitled to degrading compensation. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. It wasn't like 1000% horrible, but it was mostly pretty garbage. I mean, the whole thing is predicated on the concept that lesbians are not having enough sex. And like it's one thing if you're like in a relationship and you're like, you know what, and we need to like we're not something is off with our sexual relationship with each other. Let's go to a therapist. That's one thing. But to be like, this is the issue of the lesbian community, and I'm here to solve the issue. And I'm like, that's a bit much. Like, that's pretty fucking condescending and offensive. Coming from a bisexual woman, let us remember. This author is a bisexual woman. Anyway. So I guess I'll rate that one. I mean, there was some like generally useful stuff in it. But the useful stuff was only useful because it was 1000% separate from all of her Oedipal BDSM male identified sexuality crap. I'm gonna rate this a 2 out of 5. It was annoying. It definitely had some really harmful propaganda type stuff in it, but there was some stuff in it that was useful. So it's not like 100% shit. 2 out of 5. All right. Oh my god. You guys, as soon as I read the essay, you're going to know what I'm about to rate this essay. This is the essay that I couldn't even read it. Like, I think I read like 3 pages of it, and then I was like, I can't keep reading this without, like, commenting because it was so disgusting and horrible. Chapter 15, or essay 15, whatever. The Persephone Complex Incest Dynamics and the Lesbian Preference by Arlene Starzepazil. This essay, man. What? Okay, so like I don't want to like go on a long thing about it, but the fact that I couldn't even just sit there, like, there's a lot of stuff in this book that I found over the top offensive, like the bisexuality continuum essay, where it was like any woman can choose to be lesbian or whatever. That was pretty fucking offensive to me, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to just like sit here and read the essay. That's what the discussion is for. Later, I'll eviscerate it. This essay was so offensive that I couldn't stop myself. I was like, this is fucked up shit. This essay. Okay, I'll talk about it a bit more than the other essays, maybe. So, this whole Persephone thing. I literally didn't even know who Persephone was, like the Greek goddess or whatever. She's, I think, Zeus's daughter, and Hades like kidnaps her to hell to rape her or something. Oh no, or Hades her dad. Whatever. Hades raping her. She finally escapes somehow, but it's like some kind of a contract or a deal or something, and basically she has to go back there like for one season a year, like for the winter or something, to be raped again. And the author is like, this is not a story of victimization. This is a story of like survival and like resilience or something. And we need like positive archetypes. And I was like, I understand like the positive archetype thing and like um Hades tricked her with a pomegranate. Thank you, Kaz. I don't know about these things. Um yeah. So it's the whole thing is a story of a fucking girl, a child, being used and abused by like everyone in her community and not being helped at all. And basically, the author is like, she's a powerful archetype because she survives and keeps surviving continuous abuse. And I was like, I don't fucking know Maple. Maple says Hades kidnaps Persephone, but apparently her father Zeus impregnates her in another myth. I don't freaking know, man. Sounds about right for all this Greek crap. So, right off the bat, though, she explains the Persephone complex, like the Persephone myth, and how we need to, like, have like positive archetypes and narratives for like surviving. Demeter is her mother. Yeah, okay. Thank you. And the whole thing falls apart because this is not a person who is surviving. Like, this is just a woman who is like not dead yet, basically. Um Ugh. This is the most Freudian essay in the whole book, which is very disappointing. So it's basically about this. She met references Nancy Chodorow and this matrosexual bond, um, and other stuff that's based on Freud, which is basically like, the mother gets jealous of the daughter, but like the dad is like usurping the mother's power by like sexually abusing the daughter, and like this affects like the mother's relationship with the daughter, and this like everybody hates the daughter, but like whatever, like I don't know. But the way she talks about it is like, I don't even know how to describe it. The tone is just like so fucking disturbing. Um Also, I never needed to read the word incested in my life, and I read it several times in this fucking essay. The incested daughter. Like the fuck, bro. Um like one of the concepts she talks about in here is basically how the daughter's first like sexual, not even like attraction, but like arousal or connection is with the mother because like breastfeeding or some like they always refer to it as pre-verbal, right? That like stage, the mother daughter Oedipal crap, they refer to it as pre-verbal. And she's like, the dad like broke that bond by like sexually abusing the daughter or some crap. Like I don't know. The whole thing is just like so fucking disturbing. And also the whole thing is very, very heavily based in like myth and archetype, which like again, I'm not like totally against that, like Jungian stuff or whatever. But it's like so heavily based in that. Like she'll be like, okay, this is the relationship between like the daughter and the father. Let's have like 3 pages talking about like the myth of like, Zeus and Persephone and their relationship, and then we'll like disambiguate that into like real life. Okay, let's have like another 3 pages talking about Demeter's relationship with Persephone and like disambiguate that. And I was like, this is, I don't know. The patriarchal incest dyad. Oh yeah, then he has a whole section about the mother, like Demeter and Zeus's relationship. Um I don't know. So if I understand her correctly, what the Persephone complex is like the relationship between the daughter and the mother being like destroyed, and the father like forcing himself into like a closer psychological relationship with the daughter in like a dominating way. And so it's like the nurturing positive relationship you have has been like replaced or substituted by like a really really negative relationship. I mean, like, in a very basic term. I mean, obviously you spent like 20 pages explaining it. So um then one of the conclusion sections to the essay: lesbian preference, Persephone resurrected. Like, I don't know. Like, also the entire essay, she exclusively refers to lesbianism as a choice. And it's like, okay, like you guys know, when I was reading this book, I was trying to like take the author at their word and like have a good faith interpretation of it and be like, what are they trying to say? I don't assuming that they mean all the postmodern shit we mean now. I want to know like what are they actually trying to say? And this one I was like, I'm trying to have like a good faith interpretation, but it's really, really hard. Um so basically, she views it as like women taking back their power, choosing to be lesbians. Um and it's all very Freudian. It's about like you're reestablishing your positive nurturing identification with your mother instead of with your father by like being with women instead of being with men. And like it's all very like Freudian and bullshit. Um like I don't know, it's so specific in the meaning. Oh, hey Rachel. Yeah, I'm glad you missed this one. Um it was definitely by far the worst essay. Negative 100 stars, this essay. Like literally, the rest of them, like the worst essays, are getting a 1 star. Negative 100 stars. This essay was so offensive. I'm pretty sure there's one point where she like unironically refers to like incest survivors as like whores or something. Like it's so bad. It's so bad. And I don't know if she's trying to be like satirical or something. And it's like she says herself that she is a survivor of father-daughter incest. So I was really trying to like take that into account while trying to interpret what she's saying. But like she's one of the bisexuals. I mean, based on the fact that she exclusively refers to lesbianism as a preference or a choice throughout the essay, she's a bisexual. Like um or she's like heavily identified with bisexual women at least. Um like it gets to the point where she's describing like the physical sensations or like the physical connection a woman has to her body after being a survivor of like prolonged childhood sexual abuse. And being like, "Oh, look, women who don't like penetration, you know what's good for that? Be a lesbian." And I'm like, "What the fuck is wrong with you, lady?" Like it's like so fucking disturbing. Um like in a lot of ways it's kind of like, oh, you have like a lot of issues with your sexuality because of your abuse, so like instead of like solving the issues you should like sidestep them by like being a lesbian. And I'm not here to tell like women who are survivors of incest like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that like she's kind of like one of the things she mentions is that being sexually assertive, right? If you're a survivor of sexual father incest, this might be, you might view yourself being sexually assertive as you violating someone or someone's boundaries or something like this. It might make you like very deeply uncomfortable, so you never want to do that. And like in the inverse, being sexually approached by a man is like very triggering and upsetting to you. So you know how you like solve the problem? Be with a woman. And I'm like, but you didn't solve the problem. You sidestep the problem. And I'm not saying that like it's like a solvable problem or that it even is like a problem necessarily, depending on how you think about it. But I'm just like, it's like, I don't know, man. It's just like very stupid. Um Yeah, Anung says misogynists have always claimed that lesbians are only lesbians because of incest or early childhood sexual assault. Yeah. Um, so I think she's trying to like reframe that as like you know, take back your power or whatever. Like maybe that's what people think, but like that's a stereotype because like this is like the truth of it. Like this is like a complicated, nuanced perspective on it. And I'm like, I don't know. By the end of it, basically everyone in the live chat and me, all of us were like, this woman, the whole essay is like projection of her issues. That's what the essay is. It's not actually like this is how you help other women. This is like these are my issues and this is how I've like learned to cope with them through this like very like bizarre perspective. Rachel says, no, you have to process your trauma. Avoidance just buries it until it comes out later and worse. And Rachel would fucking know. Okay. Yeah. No, Anung says, this is what I keep trying to like get back to with this. I'm trying Anung. Anung says, it's hard to explain. Choice back then didn't mean what choice means today. There's a communication problem between the generations. Yes. Very much agree. Um, Like I almost think the way that they used choice back then was more like the choice to live as a lesbian, even if you already were a lesbian. I think that's kind of what it means, like the choice to like enact lesbianism rather than just feel lesbianism or something. Like kind of think that's what they mean, or like the choice to allow yourself the space to believe you could be a lesbian rather than like the not having that space to even consider it. Like that's kind of what I think it means sometimes, but I'm not sure. Like that's just my impression. Oh yeah, that's what I just said. Anung's yeah, okay. Well, I guess I'm more on the same page. Anung says it was more like quote unquote choose to be lesbian is choosing to allow your true authentic sexuality to come out if you were already attracted to women, not so much just lesbian if you're not already. Yeah. Yeah, okay. One sec, just to close my door. Mama. Mama, you want to go outside? All right. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So the conclusion of the essay. This essay I spent the longest time on, but it was like the most disturbing essay. Um, this essay made me question what was the editorial process for this book. Like a lot of the other essays where it's like they mention bisexual women who are like political lesbians or whatever. I'm like, okay, fine. In the 80s, I guess there was a bunch of those, so they're trying to like give all the perspectives or like the other side or whatever. Fine. But this essay in specifically, I'm like, this is not like the other side. This is like extremely fucking harmful. Oh, I want to move on from this essay, but there's something else I feel I need to mention. She mentions there's like two or three paragraphs where she talks about the relationship between the therapist and the client. And the only thing she says outright that you should never do, the only thing she says you should never ever do is to sexually reciprocate with your client. She says there is a space in therapy for physical intimacy, like hugging or something. And I was like, but then at the whole fucking time she's talking about like the client might become like over attached to the therapist, the client might invent a kind of fantasy about who the therapist is because they're helping them, like that it's like a very complex situation and you need to handle it very carefully. But then she leaves like a lot of gray area for things that I thought it's like if you are a therapist, it should be very black and white that you never do these things under any circumstance. And she is like, no, we need to have a gray area for this and that. Like, as long as you're not having sex with them, never ever have sex with them or reciprocate sexually. But like other place, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I understand, okay, for example, you're a survivor of trauma, you don't like being touched. Anybody touching you makes you uncomfortable, makes you upset. Okay. So maybe that's something you want to work on in therapy. Good. Does that mean the therapist should be the one touching you? I don't think so. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't fucking know what the fuck she was talking about. And the fact that she is like a therapist saying this, who specifically she works for like 3 different organizations that deal with like rape survivors or something. I don't remember her bio, but you can go look at the, in the video, the bio's there. Um and the fact that the editorial, like there's 8 women in the Lesbian Psychologies collective, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 women and all of them read this essay, and I'm sure there was other editors or whatever, and we're like, "You know what? This is an okay thing to put in our book." They even mentioned in the conclusion of the book, there's like or what do you call the acknowledgments. In the acknowledgments, they even say like, thanks to all the women for like the editorial process, like that we like told you what to change and you had to keep re-editing your essays and it was like a lot of work and took a lot of time, but like thanks for doing that. And I was like, so throughout that process nobody was like, you know what, all 9 of us are therapists or social workers or registered like psychologists or whatever, and we all think like this is really sketchy. None of them were like, you need to take this out or change this, or like this is so offensive that the whole essay should be excluded from the book or something. um yeah, Kaz says still convinced she's committed malpractice. You can look her up. All of the women in this book, you can look them up. Most of them are still in practice. Or if they're not in practice, they've published some stuff so you can get a sense of who they were after this book was published. Um, no, Anung Getter is dead. Don't go on there. It's stupid. It's like there's like 5 gender critical. I use that word very loosely. I don't even like have a particular affinity for that word or like a protective instinct towards that word. But these women are literally not gender critical. There's like 5 like gender critical YouTubers who are all over Getter, and all of their sycophants are there, and nobody else is there. Like they've scared everyone else off of Getter. So like it's kind of just like a cesspool of like these fans with each other. I would not advise you to get on Getter. Like I'm not trying to tell you what to do. You do what you want to do. But like I've been on there like since quite early, and it's gone quite downhill. And the only reason I'm still on is because a couple of women have told me to delete my Getter, so I'm not deleting it, but it's quite useless at this point. Okay. Maple says, I'm not an incest survivor, but I am a child sexual abuse survivor. And it drives me crazy when they start with this quote, this is how the child bonds with the abuser, end quote. And I'm like, not for me. Yeah. That's something else too that I found about the essay. I was like, okay, let's forget all of the like super offensive shit and the Freudian crap and blah 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 blah. Even if everything she's saying in the essay is like based on very solid foundation, she makes a lot of generalizations which are like, you know, most incest survivors feel a lack of connection to their mother, and throughout their life they're trying to like rebuild a more positive relationship with their mother, something like this. And I was like, okay, I've known incest survivors for who that's true, but I've also known survivors who have like murderous rage towards their mothers. So like she just spoke in like such sweeping generalizations that I was like, is this a useful? And I know maybe I'm hyper aware of that because I know that I've done that about D-trans like a lot. And I've like in the last like 3 years, I've tried to be like really, really careful to not make sweeping generalizations. But I was like, why are you doing that? Like it's stupid. I agree. Maple. Rachel says you work on talking and using your words to define your boundaries first. Mhm. Hey Julia. Yeah, I'm not gonna mention any names of any YouTubers. I like Lisa Michelle and I like Radical Ramblings. Everybody else, I don't want to mention who I like and don't like and why I don't like or like them. Um, I'm just telling you guys, like going forward, I'm not gonna mention the names of YouTubers anymore. Like I did a little bit early on, and I was like, I want to collaborate with this person. Like she's so cool. And then like a bunch of them turned out to be racists, and then a bunch of them out to be like intentionally hanging out with women who made like Nazi memes and who made like a lot of really disturbing stuff. And I'm like, there is a particular YouTuber who accused another lesbian of being like in love and obsessed with this other straight YouTuber, and like all of these fucking women are friends with her after she did that publicly. And I'm like, so you all are okay with lesbophobia? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just a whole tangled mess of all these women, and I don't want to say like who I do or don't like and why I do or don't like them. But like the whole thing has made me very disappointed, I have to tell you. Like when I first got back on YouTube a few months ago, I was like, "Oh, there's so many more women now." Because when I first got on YouTube, like in 2018 or whatever, there was very few. Oh yeah, that some of them are not even lesbians. I know. I let's yeah. Anyway, but I was so excited when I got back on YouTube and I was like, there's so many women. Because, like, in 2018, there was like a handful. There was like Magdalene Burns, Terry Strange, me, and like a couple of really small YouTube channels with less than 1,000 subscribers. And I was so excited when I came back. But then a bunch of these women are like really, really like euphoric over their misogyny towards each other and like elated over like harassing their own fans. Like I don't understand what's happening, and it's like extremely disappointing to me. Honestly, like the way some of these women act, it's like it's almost like they're plants for patriarchy. It's like, all these women who are willing to spend time like watching YouTube videos because they're like interested in like what's going on and who want to like learn more and like make connections with other women. Right. Let's make it so that all the women that they go to see will just like fight with each other and fight with their fans and create like endless conflict. And so instead of all these women who are willing to like spend their energy watching stuff and learning stuff and like expanding their thinking and making connections, they're actually all just getting involved in like crap with each other. It's like a way to divert all the energy. It's like very, very disappointing. Anung says this is why we don't have leaders or celebrities in radical feminism until they die and they become martyrs. Like Magdalene Burns and like Andrea Dworkin are like martyrs to us, right? Anyway. I agree. Michelle says, they don't know. I don't think anyone has put money into studying incest and child sexual abuse, or if they did, is from a male perspective. Very much agree. Myron describes Getter as borderline unusable. I think that's a good description of Getter. That's how I feel. Rachel, I think in reference to the YouTuber crap, says we saw how the sausage was made and it was yikes. Agree. Well, I'll mention Terry Strange because she's like irrelevant at this point, but she was like a political lesbian for like what, like 4 or 5 years or something, until she started dating a literal men's rights activist and was like, never mind, I'm not a lesbian because I'm in love with this douchebag now. Anung says sometimes you have to step away and regroup in order to make it through the marathon that is revolution. That's how I see it. Like a lot of the ways that not only some of these YouTubers but their fans have been acting. I'm like, okay, I get that most of these women are using, especially the commenters, who some of them are particularly insane, are using synonyms. I mean, not synonyms. They are using pseudonyms. Um, so I get that you can just like destroy your account and make a new one with a new name. VF555. But I'm thinking of like the long game. Like I'm gonna be here in 10 years, maybe not on YouTube. Who knows? But in the movement, I'm going to be working in feminism and lesbian shit in 10 years. I'm gonna be here in 50 years, Like I'm not going anywhere. So I'm like, are they thinking of it like that? Because like I don't think so, the way they're behaving. Like I'm gonna be here forever, yo. Like, so I'm behaving in a way that will like, complement that goal. The anti-Semitism, oh my god, don't like should we do a live stream? Actually, yo. Okay. Anung, so succinct. There will always be women who burn out and can't handle the struggle. I've definitely burnt out. I mean, look, I disappeared. Well, I burnt out twice. First, I burnt out on YouTube. Then I started doing real life advocacy, and then I burnt out on that. And now I'm back on YouTube. um, you can't kill the revolution, but you can sure burn out the revolution. Very much agree. Mm. I do not want to talk about anti-Semitism and racism in the GC because I do not have the hours required for this conversation. Uh, completely agree, Anung. Like we need to. I have that. Like it's only like in the last 3 years that I have like my little group. I have like a little list of like 4 women. Who I'm like, these are the women that I really respect their opinion. That they help center me. They help. They help me like heal and recharge. And they're the women I keep going back to. And in real life, the internet is bullshit, guys. Like I know it's all you have, most of you, but like you need to make some real life lesbian feminist friends that keep me like grounded, you know? And they're the ones that I'm still gonna be around in 10 years. Like, no offense, you guys, but I don't know, like Maple, for example. Like maybe in 10 years we will have lost contact. But like, you know, I don't know. I totally agree with you, Anung. Like we need to think like small cell in the long term because like big groups like Anung knows. There are very few lesbian feminist groups that lasted more than like 6 years or something. Like most, I think the average lifespan for like lesbian feminist groups was like 3 to 4 years. So like, I don't know. Maple says no one should be in the position of how dare you question me. Very, very true. Like whenever I have only voiced one strong criticism of a fellow YouTuber in the last couple months. And the conclusion of that criticism was I know some of you will be threatened by the fact that I'm criticizing this woman, but I welcome any criticism you have for me as well. Like I don't want to be in a personality cult, exactly what Maple is saying. There I never want to be in that. Like I really think for my own self-perception, my own mental health, and for the health of like the movement, we really, really need to stay humble. Like you can't there's no space for like huge egos and this kind of like how dare you question me thing. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of women who've said that they're lesbians or said that they're women of color, and it has been like demonstrably shown within the last couple of weeks that they are neither of those things. It's pretty disturbing. Okay, whatever. Let's get on with the fucking essay. Maybe I'll do a second stream after this to gossip about shit and then remove it. Maybe today's the day for that guy. Okay. So the Persephone, should we what's the conclusion of this essay? Okay, I have to say, like, just again, let's take everything she has to say at face value. Pretend that the premise is not ridiculously offensive and also faulty. How does the Hades myth work as a symbol of resilience when she is constantly being re-victimized? Like, I understand that being re-victimized is like very, very common for survivors of incest, but you should be aspiring to not be re-victimized, right? Like, I don't know. Just everything about this essay is very bizarre and strange. Like, it's honestly, there are some people, some women that I know that Rachel also knows who've retransitioned. And once they retransition, they will write like a manifesto or an essay or like a Facebook post or whatever. And you read the post, and it's like the phrases don't quite click together. Like the point of one paragraph and the point of the next paragraph, they don't quite like they kind of make sense together, but they don't quite make sense together. It's like something doesn't quite clicking. And that's how this essay read to me. And so that's why when we got to the end of the essay and everybody was like, this is this woman projecting her issues and her cope onto us. I was like, yes, because it really seems like the words of a very traumatized woman. Um, so that's unfortunate. Like I said, negative 100 stars. Okay. Okay. Rachel says disassociation speak. Thank you. Like, I mean, obviously this was edited a lot, but if you look at like the first paragraph and the last paragraph of the essay, it's like that doesn't actually like there's no continuity. Like it's very strange. Okay. Kaz of the teapot. Okay. Oh, Hannah, where are you that you have broadband? You're in the UK, right? I know there are parts of Canada and Australia that have broadband, presumably parts of the US, but honestly, the US is pretty covered. Okay. Essay 16. Lesbian Alcoholism. Etiology, Treatment, and Recovery by Lee K. Nikoloff and Eloise A. Stiglitz. This was a very good essay. This had the things that I liked about the essays in this book. It explored the abstract psychological aspects of things, it grounded them in real world examples, and it was very easy for me as a layman to get a sense of like what is about this topic. It did feel like very introductory. It's only 6 pages or 8 pages or something. But I felt kind of like, oh, I have a sense of this topic much more than I did before. I feel like now I would like to read a book on alcoholism and lesbians, but who knows? I would rate this essay definitely a 4 out of 5 stars. I might reread it. I definitely will recommend it. I'm not 100% sure I'll reread it. Somewhere between a 4 and 5 stars. Quite good, but not to the same level as like the Aging Lesbians essay or the Prince Charming essay. Anyway. Yeah, honesty is super important. That's why, like, as I was talking about Anang, I would love to have a conversation with you about this maybe. Like, I'm not sure how we could do it on the channel, but when I'm talking about community building among lesbians, I'm like, I really, really think at this point in my life that any group needs to start with a small group of women who have implicit trust in each other. Because you can't, like, you need to have some trust to start anything or to get anywhere. You need women who can speak up and say, like, this is stupid, that you're going to respect them and not take it personally. Like, you need to have trust to get anything off the ground. I completely agree. Um, oh my God, Anung, I would love to interview you just about like your experience of living in collectives. Um, okay. Okay, I'm gonna ignore the live chat. Like I said, I'm gonna do a second stream after this. So I'm gonna ignore all of you and do this, and then we'll do another thing with more live chat. Okay. 17. Lesbians, Weight, and Eating. New Analyses and Perspective by Laura S. Brown. This essay was amazing. Amazing. This essay was about, I mean, it was, again, it was like all of these, and this essay was very feminist based. Maybe the second or third most feminist based essay in the whole book, aside from the female. I would say this is the second most, okay, in terms of the most feminist based essays in the book. The female socialization in lesbian relationships is number one. This one, the lesbians, weight, and eating, new analyses and perspective is 2, and third is the last one, the meditation and spirituality. Like very, very good. Okay. Um. So she talks a little bit about how like we're working on anecdotes because we don't really have data about this. Um. Then she ties in female socialization. She makes some hypotheses about female socialization. Not hypotheses. It's kind of like, you know, those like 10 rules of patriarchy or whatever, how women are supposed to like be small and like, ooh, was something that I loved. I've never heard about this like concept before, which I feel kind of stupid because it seems obvious to me. Um, that women are like simultaneously supposed to be like self-sacrificing and like not take up space and not take up resources. But that a lot of women treat eating as like a self-soothing. And so like this weird like paradox between like, what you're socialized to do and also that you need food to survive, obviously. So it's like this weird paradoxical situation that a lot of women are in like psychologically without realizing it. Yeah. Myron says I'd rather someone straight out just tell me they don't like me or have a problem with what I say than to be all weird about it. I struggle with passive aggressive regression for sure. Very hard for me to be direct. No, that's why I like conservatives, honestly. Cause I'm like, if you think that like my sexuality or like my appearance or like my political views are stupid, they'll just tell me. And like I fucking love that shit. When liberals are all like tiptoeing around shit and being like, "Oh no, we need to like be nice." Like just fucking tell me what you think. If you think I'm like an evil ugly dyke, just tell me that. I'd rather know. You know what I mean? Anyway. All right. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. This essay was amazing. It didn't really have a lot of um treatment, like how to fix this problem. But what it did have was a lot of consciousness raising, like a lot of just like very, very insightful. Okay, we're on to the last three essays of the book. Community. 18. The saga of continuing clash in lesbian community. Or Will an army of ex-lovers fail? By Sarah F. Pearlman. What is the other essay by Sarah F. Pearlman? Oh, she's in that like dialogue on race. But she had her own essay in this book other than this one. Oh no, I'm thinking of the Nichols. Okay, whatever. Well, this was pretty recent. Any of you guys have thoughts on this? This talks about the different sources of conflict within the lesbian community. I thought this one was pretty decent. She talks a lot about like managing expectations versus reality. Um Something that I like that she brought up, because this is like part of my own personal experience, is the why women come to the group. So if women come to the group because they're lonely, this is not like basically women's motivation. And is their motivation for coming to anything community wise a long term motivation or a short term motivation? This is not how she terms it, but this is how I interpreted it. And based on that, you can know a lot about the future of a group and who's going to be there and what they're going to be doing. Um, yeah. Oh, also, I like this essay. Like, she quotes Shulamith Firestone, and she quotes who else does she quotes a couple of, I think she quotes Jeffries. I don't know. Just as opposed to quoting Foucault and Freud is pretty great. Um, ugh. So she also gets into this whole Oedipal mother-daughter crap, and it's very annoying. I don't like that. I don't know. Yeah. I I don't know. This essay was interesting, but not spectacular. It made me think about some stuff that I might not have thought about otherwise, which is obviously always great. But like anything I read that I disagree with always does that. So I would rate this 3 out of 5 stars. Eh. Not spectacular, not bullshit. There's definitely some bullshit in it with the whole edible crap. There's like 3 pages of that garbage. But the other stuff that's just like, because the reason I rated a 3 out of 5 and not just annoying is because maybe someone like a Nung who has actual real world experience of like lesbian community beyond like 2 or 3 groups and going to Mishfest one time, um, like me, uh, wouldn't get much out of this essay. It would all be like old news. But for me, a lot of this essay was like the breakdown and the development of lesbian communities, and that was like new information for me. So I found it interesting. Um, Anang says it's all about trying to maintain your faith in women. Yo, that leads us to the last essay is about spirituality, and it was so freaking awesome. My favorite essay in the book. Okay, let's move on. All right, essay 19: mediation for lesbians. Yeah, what you all these three comments lead back to what is the covered in the last essay. Julia responded to that. It's all about trying to maintain faith in yourself, said Anung. Julia responded, which starts with yourself. Anung says, lesbian community is hard. It's good to be reminded of that sometimes, though. I think it's good because you need to have realistic expectations of how much work it's going to take, what you're going to get out of it, what you have to put into it. I think it's good to have realistic expectations. Um, Oh, I'm glad you're here, Toss Stones. Don't feel like you need to say a lot. Oh yeah, no. I've mentioned this quite a bit recently. Like you have to know who you're walking away from and when is the right time to walk away, like to be healthy. Yeah. Mama. Well, she's like here, but you can't really see her. What do you want? You want food? It's not food time. It's not how it works in this house. Come here. Okay. All right. 19. Mediation for lesbians. This one I have like very immediate memory of it, so I'll try not to get too into it, but I can summarize. Okay, by Bonnie J. Englehart and Catherine Triontafiu. This was a really good essay. It was probably one of the most concrete essays in the whole book. So basically, they are a civil rights and like family attorney and I think she's technically a registered a social worker who's a registered therapist or something. I don't know. Basically, one of them does couples therapy, and one of them does a lot with like lesbians. So the lawyer said that she kept getting phone calls like in the 70s from lesbians who were breaking up and being like, I want the house, like, help me. And then she would get the phone call from the other partner and be like, I can't represent you, but like, I can't even recommend someone to represent you. And I don't even think you should take this to court because like, you don't want your shit, like, your laundry aired in court. And so they were like, we need a mediation service, basically. And they talk about the role of the therapist, the role of the lawyer having like the way I'll give you like a brief outline of what happens in the essay. They're like, this is what our mediation service is. It's 3 to 6 sessions of 1.5 hours. And you agree when it starts, this is how many sessions it's going to be. It has a fixed rate. They're like, our rate isn't super low, but what we get out of it, we're actually getting paid half of our usual rate. That's something else too. It's not like their main income is the mediation service. So they're practicing therapists and lawyers. So that's to make most of their income. And this is like somewhere between a volunteer service because it's like a fixed rate that's quite low for them. Um and yeah, they're kind of like these are some of the issues we've had. Oh, these are the characteristics that if you want to become a mediator, these are the characteristics you should look for in yourself, or these are the characteristics that could be bad. I mean, like these are the common issues we have. So it's kind of like an overview of like what is our business, who's good for running this kind of business, what are the problems you can expect to run into, and like this kind of thing. And basically being like, oh, they mentioned many, many times the difference between mediation and arbitration, which I already knew, but they felt they needed to tell us like 3 times. Fine, whatever. um, and also, they have like a feminist perspective on it, which is that mediation involves like a catharsis of feelings. And that a lot of the times, like for divorce, right? When you go to court, it's not really about who gets grandma's dishes or whatever. It's about like a closure. And so they're like in a lot of ways, it's more like feminist to like help these women get their closure and express their feelings in like an acceptable environment, even if that's to be rude or angry or whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was amazing. It was very cool. And I'm really sad. Like, so many of the essays in this book, the conclusion of the essay is, well, wouldn't it be great if society could like expand this field, like expand incest therapy, expand lesbian couples therapy, expand like race specific lesbian centered therapy, like all of them are like this is going to get better in the future, and they're like no, it all died. Like this is one of the very few books on the concept of lesbian psychology. It is a very small field. The way this book is written, this was written after a conference in 1984 according to the book. The way this book is written is like this is the beginning, and it's not. Like it died. It's so sad. Um okay. So yeah, I would rate this a 4 out of 5. No, I would rate this a 5 out of 5. No, 4. Okay, whatever. 4.5 out of 5. I don't know if I would necessarily like plan to reread it, but I found it very interesting. Um, okay, the last essay, my favorite essay in the whole book. I remember reading like just the titles in the index or a glossary or no index, whatever. Table of contents, that's the word. I remember reading the table of contents and seeing the title of this and being like, did they just get like a kooky hippie type to put some random spirituality stuff in the last page because they felt like it wasn't they needed to like round out their book? No. This woman used to be a philosophy professor and went off to study like Oriental cultures or something after she retired. Essay 20 Beyond Community Politics and Spirituality by Francine Lee Raynon. So this essay basically is about what are the limitations of what is community? What does that really mean? Like, she talks a bit about what is it? Reciprocal well, it should be written in here somewhere. Reciprocal commitment. And so like that's something you will have in a family. Whereas if you just like join a group, you might don't have that. But like a collective, like a nun, like there you have like reciprocal commitment, right? Um and some stuff like that, kind of being like you need to recognize like what are the limits of community. And like maybe that like she almost or I think she even says outright, like the concept of community is antithetical to lesbianism or to like the lesbian political movement, like radical feminism. She's also very radical feminist. Like she doesn't even refer to it that way. She's just like the way she talks about things. Um because she views it as very limiting. Um basically. And she talks about spirituality. She talks about meditation and ritual with women and how this can be like renewing and centering and help you to form trust and intimacy with other women that you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise. And how it needs to be more about like yourself and your well-being and your personal growth and through that your relationship with other women rather than entirely about your relationship with other women regardless of the state you're in or where you're at. Like honestly, when I read this essay and it's the last essay of the book, I was thinking, okay, this is about like now you've learned some stuff that you probably wanted to practice, want to put into practice. This is how you sustain that practice through this like self-reflection, self-care, self-awareness. I love this essay. 6 out of 5 stars. Very, very good. Like I probably will reread it in the next couple days. Very, very good essay. I might even like take pictures and post it on the internet or something. Like it was so freaking good. I love this essay so much. I honestly wish, is there like books about lesbian spirituality? Like the way she discusses spirituality, she never even mentions. I think no, she mentions once one organized religion, and it's just like in Buddhism, they do like group meditation, and this has this effect. And she's like, I think we can do the same thing and have a similar effect. That's the only organized religion she mentions in the whole essay. Um, I don't know. It's like so refreshing, so great. Anyway, the book. So if you've been keeping track, which I have not, most of the essays got 3 or less stars. But this is pretty normal for me. I'm a very harsh critic. Um, there's like 5 essays in here that are very good that I'd recommend. Yeah. Okay. I already know about the women who wrote about witchy stuff. Sorry, Momo. My bad. But is the women who wrote about witchy stuff like spirituality generally, or is it just like Wicca? You know what I mean? No, Hannah, this is my favorite essay in the whole book. It's very good. The last essay, yes, essay 20. Yeah, I would like if you are tuning in, all 22 of you, which is quite high number. If you're tuning in and you haven't seen me read any of these essays, you know, whatever. If you were going to pick one essay to listen to, I would pick that one. Alternatively, The Aging Lesbians is good. Alternatively, the Prince Charming is good. What's the other really good one? Yeah, I don't know. Those are like top 3 essays that I can think of off the top of my head that are really good from this book. Okay. Rachel's asking if there's anything on Buddhism from a feminist perspective. I always thought Buddhism was like the least patriarchal religion, but the more I learn about it, the more I realize that's not really true. Oh, and Nung, you've given us multiple quotes that I haven't read. I will read this one. If you can't find spirituality that speaks to you, you can invent, quote, or failing that, invent, end quote. Monique Wittig. I love how you can just quote all these women. Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna do like another live stream in 1 second. So I'll see you there in 1 second. Okay, bye.